We continue with this theme now. New Year's resolutions keep failing because you might be settling them wrong. That hobby you promised would start taking seriously, the gym membership you said you'd renew, the procrastination you saw would be a habit of the past. Now, 6 months down the line, one may feel discouraged that the goals they felt so optimistic about have not been attained. Therefore, it is important that you not only set goals, but you set them right. For more, we are joined by clinical psychologist Dr. Kitumetse Mashego. Good to have you on the program, Doc. Many people, I must say, feel motivated in January but discouraged by February. Why do New Year's resolutions so often fail?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I think people tend to be unrealistic. So, for example, you've never been in gym. Now the New Year resolution is that you're going to go to gym 7 times a day. And I always say to people, but you need to make contingency for things that happen in life. Like, for example, if you go to gym 3 times, anything extra is a bonus. So be flexible in that, you're not trying to become a competitive athlete. You're just trying to get fit, right? So I think be realistic in that life can happen, the weather, anything is possible that can hamper that goal. So I think it's really just being realistic about your diary and your life and the unexpected things that can happen to prevent that thing from happening.
You speak about being realistic about our resolutions, but from a psychologist perspective, what is the biggest mistake that people often make, especially when setting goals for the new year?
They forget to look at, the baby steps towards achieving what it is they want to. For example, if you've never ran, now you want to go right in and win the Conference Marathon. And there's nothing wrong with being optimistic, but you need to be, plan and actually do the work within to get there and take it step by step. So maybe you won't run this year, maybe you'll run next year and aim to just complete it at a certain time. So I think it's because people are not looking at the baby steps needed to reach that goal, but also to celebrate the milestones. Because just the fact that you were not running, now you're running 1 kilometer. I mean, that's celebration in itself because a kilometer is a big deal. It's just there's also societal pressure. In the era of social media, people are posting every time they run. I'm just using running as an example, but they're posting many things. But, if the people are posting how easy it is for them to do a 10 kilometer, you might feel left out, especially if you are functioning from a place of lack.
Yeah. So the idea of new year, new me, it does sound very inspiring, but can it also create unrealistic pressure on people?
Definitely, it can create a lot of internalized pressure, but also pressure from society itself and your family. But the biggest one is the internal voice. So if that voice every day you are, beating yourself up for not doing the things that you wanted to do or that you listed at the beginning of the year, that can be quite detrimental to you. And we end up having that black and white type of thinking where, okay, if I'm not doing this, I might as well give up. That's why then people who, for example, have set their goal to go to gym 7 times a week and they don't, then they feel, like they've failed and what's the point? And they end up giving up before they actually begin. So we also need to show ourselves grace and function in the middle, in the gray area, because, as I said, life happens. So when we want to go to gym, I mean, they say 3 times, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a week is adequate. Anything extra is bonus, and celebrate when you do achieve that.
I want to delve into that a bit more. How important is it to really start small? And why do tiny habits tend to work better than drastic lifestyle changes?
It's because we are habitual beings, meaning the thing that you were not doing, you were doing something else in its place. For example, if you were not, I'm just using running as an example. If you were not running, you were doing something else. Maybe you were just sleeping in. So now you're trying to break the cycle of sleeping in all day, every day, or sleeping in later than you would have loved to. But so it's really just about changing that habit, but slowly, but understanding that stress or life as it happens, and you might, default to that setting of not doing the thing that you wanted to do in the first place. So that's why you need to show yourself grace. But I think it's because we are habitual beings, meaning the habit you are trying to achieve needs to replace another habit. And that takes time to break a habit. It takes one to be intentional. It takes time. It takes grace. It takes, one not to be hard on self when you're changing that habit to a new one. And once the new one forms, it should also not be, a detrimental thing, because too much of a good thing is also bad. So if you're running and the day you cannot run, you're not okay, then it's also a cause for concern. It means then you must make an appointment with me, because what are you running away from? So we mustn't now go from, if someone, for example, is stopping to smoke and starting to run, now
Yeah.
they cannot just skip a day of running. Otherwise, they are just chaotic. So then it means that there's something deeper happening there.
Yeah. We often hear that discipline is key, but how do systems and routines help when motivation actually runs out?
Definitely you need to show up even when you don't feel like showing up. So you really need to understand the bigger picture, which is that weight loss or that new habit that you want to form. But, as I say, taking it day by day, but discipline is definitely there. That's what will carry you when all else fails. Because I think, the emotions around whatever it is that you're doing will die down, and what will carry you is the passion or the end goal that you have in mind for whatever it is that you're trying to introduce into your life. But definitely showing up even on the hard days is quite important. And also having an accountability partner helps. So the days which are difficult, they can call you to say, hey, we're waiting for you. How are you? Where are you? Is there anything wrong? Do you need something? Should we come fetch you rather? You know what I mean? So I think having an accountability partner also helps you to keep to that thing that you said you will do in the coming year. But ensuring also, as I say, that you're not setting yourself up for failure, that you are taking, a realistic view of what it is you can do, and celebrating the small wins, because we tend to forget. I mean, for example, if someone decides to study, just the fact that you registered and you submitted your first assignment is an achievement, because you're coming from a place of not being registered at all. So I think just being graceful towards ourselves and towards others is very important.
Can you explain how habit stacking works and why it's so effective for building long-term habits?
It's because, as I said, we are naturally habitual beings. So even if that thing is not good for us, it becomes a habit. So meaning replacing it would require that. So when we remove, you're trying to stop the one habit, you need to introduce, a new habit, but gently and not harshly, and allowing the humanity, to also take over, to understand that I am human, that, it doesn't mean that I have failed as a human being. It just means I have this habit that I'm wanting to stop. Therefore, when you introduce it slowly and you stack and build on what you've already established, or have those steps in order for you that you're going to take to achieve that, then you've got some end goal. But also to understand that life happens sometimes, that you might delay in achieving that goal. Therefore, that's why there should be contingency when it comes to that plan that you have. But celebrate if you had planned to lose 5 kilograms and you lost 1 kilogram. Celebrate that there's movement, and what can I learn from this, and moving on from that. But don't now put yourself under pressure, or see what people post out there. Social media is not a real place. I can place a picture behind me and claim I'm at the beach while I'm here in my house sitting doing nothing. So I think we also need to understand that, not to compare ourselves to this unrealistic expectations or people that whose lives we don't know personally.
Yeah. So many people struggle with procrastination and phone addiction as well, I must mention. What practical advice can help them change these behaviors gradually?
I think it's really about recognizing that you have a problem, or that you want to stop something, for you to actually, be intentional about it, because we cannot force someone to change what they don't want to change, right? That's why also for people with substance abuse issues, we say, just be aware that you have a problem. You don't have to come to me sober. Just be aware that when I struggle with this thing, it means, this is my demon. This is something I'm wanting to change, and be deliberate about it. And as you are detoxing from that phone, what put in place as a plan to say, okay, I will switch it off at this hour and switch it back on at this hour, or do this so that I'm not on the phone until the wee hours of the morning. So be intentional about it. Have alarms that switch it off, whatever it is that you need to do to ensure that, it triggers a new habit, but take time in doing that, into undoing it, and also then replace it with something else. So if you're, cutting off the phone, are you planning to read? Are you planning to meditate at that time? What are you planning to do? Because it doesn't help now to develop, an overthinking problem, that now you're thinking of all the problems that you have at that time instead of sleeping. So I think it's also then, what new habit will you introduce to ensure that, you can cut off the phone, for example, and introduce something else. So it's quite important to have a healthy habit that is introduced slowly, and as you are trying to overcome something else.
Yeah. How does focusing on identity, who you want to become, how does this improve the chances of sticking to your resolutions for the next year?
It's really important to then reflect on this year to say, okay, what is it that I genuinely want to work on, and maybe get feedback from people if they have said, constructive feedback about how you are. And it could be things like, I always say to people, ask people that know you authentically, what they gather from you, how they feel about you, how they see you. And once you get that feedback, then you know, okay, I need to work on this. Maybe I'm a bit hard on myself, or I'm a bit, aggressive. Let me then, do something about it. But again, do not beat yourself up for being there in the first place, because you're a human being. And it's not to say you mustn't take accountability. It's just to say that don't now expect to, the next day stop being a perfectionist, for example, if, somebody gave you that feedback. So I think it's to slowly ease in and to laugh at self, to say, okay, catch yourself out when you slip back into that default setting, for a lack of a better word. Yeah, when you fall back into that habit that you are used to, that you catch yourself out, and you actually, are content yourself to then say, okay, all right, you're falling back. Do me. What do we then do now? Remember, we are working on this, and be gentle with yourself, and then talk about how do we move on in that moment. So really being self-aware and present and mindful, because in life we tend to be soldiers on soldier mode, on autopilot. We hardly are with ourselves. That's why you find someone who's ironing a shirt, they're thinking about traffic, they visualizing traffic maybe they saw yesterday, and in their minds they're already in the traffic. Remember, the mind is that powerful, it creates that as a reality. You get into the car and you're driving off, in the taxi you're driving off, and you cannot recall if you switched off the iron. You were not present in that moment. There is no memory of you switching off the iron or locking the door. You've got so many questions, and some people actually go back. So I think that in itself should be a goal for us, to be present, more present, while we're driving, in our homes. Just be present in the body, in the moment, so that we can be in the now, instead of, living in the future or in the past.
You make a very interesting point about not being too hard on yourself when you do make mistakes. But what role does self-compassion then play when people fall off track, for instance, with their goals?
It's the same as someone who, for example, was overcoming an addiction. We say to them, you're an addict. Every day you wake up, you need to be intentional about it. But when you're stressed, be aware that you might actually relapse. So even with that habit that you have, whatever it is, be it overthinking, whatever it is that you are trying to overcome, smoking, it doesn't mean that because you've made a decision to stop doing that thing, that you will automatically not crave that thing or relapse or go back to that thing, right? Because it's something you've been doing for a while. You've mastered the art of overthinking, for example. So now you are literally taking it away and replacing with something else. So be gentle in that you might relapse or fall back into your old ways. But I think the awareness, once you're aware when that happens or what triggers that, so that you can then preempt it, or find ways, coping strategies that are beneficial to actually help you in that moment. Again, also avoiding that you're not too extreme, in that you're not too hard on yourself, expecting yourself. I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years now, to expect yourself to be over it just because you made a decision to get over it. So it's going to be a continuous, ongoing journey. And that's where the grace comes. And also just the awareness of what triggers this thing, and what do I do when I'm in that moment? Maybe that's why we get, for people with substance problems, call their sponsors. And that's why also just an accountability partner, someone to chat to get out of your head, to say, okay, I feel like I'm going to do that thing again. Let's have a talk. just so that you're okay.
And finally, Doc, what is one realistic mindset shift that you'd like to encourage people to adopt as they set their 2026 resolutions?
I think for me, it's just overall joy. Like we are so so stuck on
Mm,
achieving this greatness that we actually don't enjoy the simple things.
mm,
There's more to us than our work or the role we play in the family, because people don't even know what hobbies they enjoy, right? When you talk about what do you enjoy, they don't know. That's why when people retire, right, they become so distraught because they've been the identity is wrapped around what they do at work. That's why parents also struggle when children leave their homes, because they've wrapped their identity around that. So I'm of you that look at yourself holistically, see what it is you're good at. Sometimes you try new things. Sometimes it might work out. Sometimes it might not. We're not trying to
mm,
make you into
mm,
a competitive athlete or this great pianist. We're just trying to get you to do the things that you enjoy,
mm,
right, without the pressure that you can do, when you're not okay. Gardening, it could be anything, painting,
mm.
singing, people, different things for different folks. But definitely try those new things, and you are a holistic being. So nurture all areas of your life, definitely.